I remember vividly sitting down, talking to my wife and being like, holy shit, like I need to, for lack of better terms, replace Danny, which anyone that knows the basement yard or knows Danny or me or Joe knows that that is an impossible task. Danny is he's hysterical. He's talented. So I had to kind of say to myself, like, all right, well, why try to be something I'm not? Why try to replace someone that is just objectively funnier than me and just work on being myself and work on the relationship that Joey and I have. So I think it took a couple weeks, not as long, but there was a bit of an adjustment period.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. This is the podcast where you can hear the real stories behind the people on social media. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly. As always, today's podcast is powered by TRUFAN. Before we get into today's conversation with Frank Alvarez, there's a couple things that we need to go over first. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to leave us a positive rating and review. Share this episode with a friend and subscribe to the show. We put up brand new interviews every single Monday, and a brand new takeaways episode is an audio exclusive where I sit down and break down the most recent podcast episode of the week every single Thursday. And now, without further ado, I'm very excited to present to you my conversation with Frank Alvarez. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly. As always, today's podcast is powered by TRUFAN. Today on the show, we are joined by Frank Alvarez. Frank is the co-host of the popular podcast, The Basement Yard. You can find him on Twitch at the Frank Alvarez, and I'm very excited to have him here on the podcast today. Frank, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jake, thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to have you here. Where I want to start today, I want to go all the way back to the beginning. All right. So from my understanding, you grew up in Astoria, right?
Yeah. Little. It's not really a little town. It's a pretty big town. But Queens, one of the 5 boroughs in New York. When people think of the city, they think of Manhattan. They think the skyscrapers. And technically Queens is the city. So I whenever I meet people outside New York, they're like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, New York City. They're like, oh my God, you live like how close to Times Square? And I'm like, kind of close, but not a different borough.
Yeah, fair enough. So talk to me about what it was like growing up in Queens. Cause like you said, you're not living next to Times Square, but you're still close enough where like Manhattan is within reach. And like, I've only been to New York once. I went a couple of years ago for the podcast. Actually, I went and did like a little podcast tour and just interviewed people in New York. And so I can't imagine what it was like growing up in New York. You know what I mean? Cause like where I remember coming home and realizing just how small the buildings were here. And so you just talked to me like what it was like growing up in New York.
Yeah, where we grew up in particular, I legitimately believe it's the greatest place on the planet, and I'm not even just talking New York, because New York City's a lot. It's a lot to handle. It's a lot of bells and whistles. If you don't like crowds or you get anxiety, around just like a lot of like flashing lights and noises, it's a lot to handle. But what was nice with Astoria is we grew up really close to Manhattan. It was about a 10-minute train ride into Manhattan. But it was more, rural. I guess it was a good mix of suburban and rural, townhouses. But it was really nice because all of our friends grew up within 10 blocks of each other. And walking in New York is, the easiest thing to do. It's not, I didn't get my license until I was 20 years old. It really was the best of both worlds because you have the big city there. You have, I think a lot of people think of New Yorkers as being rude and brash, and it's not my experience. Yes, there are a lot of rude people, but that's anywhere you go. I think New Yorkers are just very direct. They really let you know what they're thinking when they're thinking it. You had that aspect of growing up in New York, and then you had the ability to go to parks and walk to your friend's house and walk to school at a young age. It was, at the time, a really chill neighborhood with a lot of cool people, great food. Now it's changed significantly, but back then it was like, in my opinion, the ultimate place and time to grow up, as a kid, in New York.
When you say it's changed now, like how so?
Well, New York in particular Manhattan, what people believe of Manhattan, and the places around Manhattan, the Bronx, especially Brooklyn, um, Queens, is a very, very, very different place. It was back then. It was, there were really, really rough areas. It was, um, low socioeconomic status, and with that came a lot of gang violence, drug use, and abuse. So there were parts of New York that you really, really stayed away from, and as a result, over the last 20 years, that has significantly changed, whether it be because of gentrification or just the absolute economic boom that has occurred in Manhattan. It's no longer easy to live in or even around New York because, with so many people working in that market, everything around it is going to inflate in prices. And unfortunately, my family was one of the victims of that movement. So Astoria growing up, you would be able to buy a house for a reasonable price. I mean, probably still higher than you would in other places in the country, definitely. But working, being the only working person, bringing home an income with, a significant other or partner that decided they would be the stay-at-home mother or father, it would be possible years ago to do that. Now, just because of how expensive it is. I mean, I grew up in a townhouse in Astoria that was, I wouldn't say small, but they're valued at over $1 million, which is an astronomical, price that you're paying for an alleyway, no yard, and a townhouse. It's not possible, personally, in my opinion, for someone of the working class to live there.
And so ultimately, like I saw an Instagram post a little while ago, is that what prompted the move to New Jersey for yourself?
Um, yes and no. I've been hopping around for a while. I went to college up in Connecticut, and while I was there, I stayed there basically for 7 years, whether it be through college, grad school, and then working. And I think because of just price, the price tag that was placed on living in New York and other familial, issues that had gone on at the time, my mom was really, because the house was in my mom and her siblings' name. My mom was very open and honest that at a point the house was going to be sold. Um, so I always dreamed of being able to have that house and have that home and having my family and children there. Um, but that coupled with meeting my now wife, who lived in New Jersey at the time, it was the most realistic option. And I'm the happiest person in the world for having done it, because the life that I have been introduced to outside of living in New York is something I would take 100 times out of 100. Not only just because of the incredible life that my family, my wife has built for us, and our home, but just the lifestyle is different. It's slower, it's not as loud, but you get to have luxuries that you would have to pay a lot more money than I currently make to have in New York.
Do you think if you were to like rewind 7, 8 years, do you think you'd have the same opinion? Or do you think that it's coming with age, being further from the city is something you're more down for?
Definitely would not have had the same opinion. I'm one of those guys that, you often look back at yourself 10 years and you're like, wow, I really grew up. I look back on myself like 3 years and I'm like, wow, I change rapidly. And, whether it be my personality, I mean, my personality stays intact for the most part, I like to think, but just your priorities, all that stuff changes so quickly. So I'm sure if you had spoken to me, you know, 7 years ago, it was 2014. Boy, oh boy, I was gung ho. I was ready to take that Astoria house. I didn't care what it would cost. I was going to be a millionaire. It was much more. I guess the only word I can use is wishful thinking. But yeah, this 7 years ago, I would not have had the same opinion. I probably would look at myself now and be like, "What's wrong with you?" In some ways. In other ways, I always wanted the life I had. But in others, I'd be like, where the fuck? You went to Jersey? Jersey's a punchline for people from New York. We hate each other. I'm sure up in Canada, there's one town or one area that, just doesn't like another for no reason. That's New Yorkers with Jersey. We always say the smartest person I've ever met is the first person that left that left Jersey to go to New York. Best part of Jersey, it's the view in New York. It's a love-hate relationship where I used to love how much I hated Jersey.
I will say that reputation of the New York versus Jersey mentality carries beyond New York. Like I even kind of had, I don't know where it came from, but when I went to New York, we ended up staying in Jersey and I was kind of like, oh fuck, we're staying in Jersey. And like, because I kind of just wanted like that Manhattan experience. You know what I mean? We ended up in like the shittiest Airbnb of my life. There was a blood stain on my bed. They wouldn't change the sheets. It was a whole story. Good times in Jersey. But you said kind of your personalities never changed. So kind of going further back than that, what were you kind of like as a kid growing up?
I started off as a very rambunctious kid. Grew up in a house with a lot of personalities. My sister and I have a very, very similar personality, but she's 4 years older than me. So when I was born, she, as a little girl wanted to be the princess and, sing in front of the camera and stuff like that. And, here comes me trying to run into every, situation and shot, as my family had taken home videos. And my nickname as a kid was the mayor. I've been told stories. I don't obviously remember them myself, but I've been told stories that I would, sit down at a table with adults who are smoking cigarettes and drinking and, living the dream and just be like, so tell me about you, and just like acting as way out, out of I wouldn't say out of my league, but above my age range and maturity. And I was definitely a young, dumb kid growing up in New York. I thought I was a hard thug for a while. And, I thought I was tough and wore dog tags and oversized football jerseys and, then went through, my skinny jeans phase and went through a lot of different phases. But I did always really love to make people laugh. And you can call it narcissism or say I like attention. I mean, I don't think I brought it to a place where it's unhealthy for myself or those around me. But I was definitely loud, in your face, and kind of love to do things for laughs.
Yeah, I have. That's one of the things I found written down here is that you've always loved entertaining people. And so was that like as a kid, like in terms of like dream job growing up or what you wanted to do, was it something within entertainment? Or I know you played a lot of sports. So was it like, I want to be in the NFL or something like that? Or what was the dream job as a kid?
I think there was a point in my life where I wanted to be an athlete, whether it be because I really played baseball and football. And I'm sure there was a point where I said like I wanted to go to the NFL or I wanted to go to the MLB, but I always kind of knew that I wouldn't. Like I love playing sports and I was pretty good at some things, not so great at others, but I think I always knew like I'm not going to become a professional athlete. So, yeah, from a really, really, really early age, Joe Santagato and I would watch stand-ups and we would watch, um, old SNL episodes. I grew up a lot on Mad TV, which I don't know if you know what Mad TV is. And I don't mean to be condescending,
No.
but I know it's a little different, between the countries. Just I grew up with that stuff a lot. So of course, in my head, I was like, I like to make people laugh, like to make people smile. I'm watching this stuff that does that for me. That's where I want to be,
I think like in terms of Mad TV, I think I probably caught like the tail end of Mad TV, like on YouTube. Like I can remember watching, they did a skit with like, what's it called? Deal or No Deal. They did a Deal or No Deal skit and I can remember watching that and loving it. There was a John Cena one from back in the day that I can remember watching. But in terms of the stand-up comedians, that's interesting to me because like I had a phase probably like 2-3 months ago, I was really trying to kind of getting into the old school stand-up comics. And so if you're into that, I highly recommend the book I'm Dying Up Here, which is all about like comedy in LA in the 70s. And it's when like all these no names like Jay Leno, Robin Williams, David Letterman all went to LA at the same time. And it's like the story of what happened there. But who are some of those stand-up comedians you watched back in the day?
Well, I mean, I think as I progressed in life, I watched some more of the, tapes on the classics, definitely, some of Robin Williams' early work. Obviously, if you enjoy comedy and you haven't seen something from George Carlin, Richard Pryor, you're doing yourself a disservice. But I think the first one I really truly remember is it was a special by Jim Brewer, who is a local New York guy. He was on SNL, and he did a special called Hardcore. And Joey and I would watch it on repeat. And I mean, we had memorized this thing basically. And it was the first time granted, I was just memorizing his set and doing it for my friends, but I saw it click in my head that like, hey, doing this, just kind of just telling stories and being a bit of an exaggerated version of yourself will make people laugh if done right. So I, saw that and really ran away with it. Of course, then there's, Chappelle. I remember at an early age. Uh, for lack of, for better or for worse, Dane Cook, for a while, that vicious circle, like, oh, I was on that train for a while too, but they definitely introduced me to it. And then, seeing the sketch comedy stuff, like I said, Mad TV, SNL, I grew up a really big Chris Farley fan. And just seeing how he was able to match, just genuinely making people laugh with his physicality, I was like, this is a no brainer.
And so kind of like hindsight is 2020, you can connect the dots looking backwards. Like, are there like part of your mannerisms or even specifically on the podcast? Cause like it's a comedy podcast. So are there mannerisms you picked up, you think maybe even subconsciously from all that comedy you watched that kind of manifested itself now when you're doing the podcast or anything like that?
I think so. I think, I really, my favorite movie of all time is The Mask. And that was the first time I remember seeing Jim Carrey and just seeing his ability to just be nonstop, bing, 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 and just go, 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 go without taking a breath. I do think that had a big role. I've now, tried to put moments where I do take a step back and like let something simmer before, moving on to something else. But I do try to, I think I have a natural hyperactivity to myself that I try to utilize. And I definitely get that from, Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, because those are two really, really, really early influences on my life.
Okay. And you mentioned Joe. You originally met him in, was it preschool or something like that?
Yeah.
And is the story of you guys getting into a fight over a fruit roll up in middle school, is that true?
It was at elementary school.
Elementary school.
Yes, it was. We were very protect. Listen, fruit roll-ups, fruit by the foot, those things were hard to come by back in the day. So you had one of those when you were a kid, you were the fucking coolest kid in school that day. So absolutely, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I mean, like, this is observing from afar with kind of just like your friend group. Have you guys stayed together for the most part, like growing up in a story, like live all those kids in the neighborhood? Like, is there still like a core group that's kind of lasted throughout the years?
It's definitely changed through the years. I think just the natural progression of life. Um, as your priorities change, and your ability to relate to people changes, the people that you keep closer to you definitely changes as well. I think, the people that the really close knit group that I called, my good friends, my best friends, from Astoria, I will always call them friends, unless they've done something to wrong me, which is very few. Um, and I think as we've progressed, we've shown that there are different in that group. There are different groups of those that just work better together. I like Joey and I, for example, like it was always us two, and we were very close, and we just worked off each other, but we were friends with everyone. And then there's other, my brother-in-law Danny and our friend Dominic. I still, my brother-in-law is obviously my brother-in-law, but like Dominic, still a very good friend. I consider him to be a really good friend, but I know that he's closer with other people in that friend group. So as we've kind of grown up a little bit and our priorities have shifted, I wouldn't say we've grown apart, but we've just continued on our own paths. And we still, talk every now and then, check in, shoot the shit a little bit. I'll love all those guys and girls, really just guys. We didn't have a lot of like close girl friends, but I love them all to death.
I was just curious because from my understanding, you grew up in Astoria your whole life until college, and like we kind of talked before the podcast where I moved around a bit. So like I don't have those. It's like I don't have like my whole childhood experience with people who can like relate to every single part of it. You know what I mean? Which I was
Yeah.
just curious about that. And one thing this is kind of probably my most random question I will say, but growing up in New York around that time, I'm curious what your memory of 9/11 was. Cause for me, I was 4. And I know for a lot of people, it's like, where were you when 9/11 happened? It's like, I can't really remember where I was, but you were probably part of that generation who's just old enough at the time to still remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was 9 years old, and we were in fourth grade. And I mean, I remember the day as clear as possible. As clear as day, as I say on the podcast. People, kind of cut my ass a little bit. Um, I remember, we were in school. We weren't able to see the buildings from our classroom, but we did see the smoke billowing. And it was intense. And what I remember happening quite vividly is there were teachers running in and out. The teachers in the school were very close, and there were teachers running in and out, running in and out, and we didn't know what was going on. They didn't tell us, but then one by one, more kids getting called down to the principal's office. And I remember after one of the third or fourth kid, someone gets called down to the principal's office. What is it about? Ooh, and finally, one of the neighboring, like the science teacher, was in our room and just like fucking snapped and was just like, there are people fucking dying out there. I don't know if he said fucking, but for the sake of the story, let's say he did. And that's when we were like, oh, like what's going on? And then, I remember my mom picking up myself, Joe, his brother Keith, and my 2 younger brothers. And my mom was just crying. No clue what was going on. Still, we knew something was bad. And then I just, obviously we watched the news, we learned what's happening. My father was working in Manhattan at that time. So I remember it was a big issue that we couldn't get a hold of him. And we had since, obviously soon thereafter got a hold of him, but I just remember really, really clearly that it was like there's a difference between a calm quiet and a chaotic quiet. There was a sense of like just like such a somber, like anywhere you looked, everything was just gray. Everyone was quiet, not saying that New Yorkers are the type to bump into each other and say, hey, good morning, how you doing? But like, it's just like everyone was just shut down. And it was really, really, really sad, I think, for lack of better terms. We also, we there was an after school program at our elementary school. And one of the teachers there, he was like a volunteer teacher, was also an FDNY firefighter. He had lost his life, rescuing people from the building. So in addition to it just being a really, really rough time to be a New Yorker, it was a sad time at our school because we felt that we lost one of our own, and it was a rough, I mean, obviously it was a rough time, but like, it's hard to put into words, you know, I think the way that people took it emotionally in New York, even those that were not directly affected.
Mhm. How long did it take for things to just kind of like, it's like the new normal. There's no going back to the old normal, but how
Mm.
long did it take for things to kind of feel like it was regular again, if that makes sense?
I mean, it's tough for me to really recall because I was so young. And I think that, reestablishing a sense of self and a sense of community for children happens a lot quicker than it does for adults. So I honestly, I can't answer that well, because I don't really remember how long. The reality is, yes, I was a 9-year-old at the time, but I definitely was not able to handle the emotional weight that came along with that day. So it's possible that like the next day I could have been like up playing with my Pokemon, and Power Rangers and what have you, and like not feeling the obvious, like elephant in the room, so to say.
That's fair. I mean, there's no. Well, first off, thank you for sharing that. That's obviously like,
Yeah, no problem.
and there's no easy way to transition from that. So I'm just gonna jump straight to it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. What a way to bring it down. Hey,
Nah,
man, tell us about comedy, and then 9/11 right after.
didn't think that went through very well, but
You're doing great, baby. You're doing awesome.
thank you, I appreciate that. But so now college, what did you end up going to school for?
I went to school for criminal justice, which is a little different than what I'm known for.
And ultimately, so you said Connecticut, and you got your master's as well, right?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Criminal justice as well, like the whole way through.
Yeah, so my undergrad, I did my undergrad and my master's at the same school. I'm one of those, and I got my undergrad was in criminal justice with a concentration in investigative services, and then my master's was criminal justice management. So it was more, kind of like big picture, telling people be fair, be just, and stuff like that.
Was part of the reason to go to do both at the same school to remain as a part of Sigma Alpha Epsilon for longer?
Um, I don't know. Honestly, no. That's a good, dive though. That's a good pull. Um, SAE was a big part of, I think, shaping me morally during college because I was a young, drunk college idiot that, you know, I worked and I was responsible, but I also needed the pieces internally in my head in order to, put all that stuff together. If I'm being honest with you, after undergrad, I had applied to jobs fully anticipating I would get into the job market. But I worked as an RA, during my undergrad, and then I applied to be an RD, which is, like instead of, supervising series of floors or what have you, I supervised a whole building. And I applied for that, and that, as I was awarded that position, they like paid for the entirety of my master's degree. So like, fuck, I mean, it'd be stupid not to do it, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And so talk about kind of just with the frats, like we have frats here in Canada, but it is like not the same thing. So like talk about like what's all involved as a part of being in a frat. I know you talked about on your podcast initiation, you didn't have to do any weird shit, but like what was kind of involved in being in a frat?
Well, I think for me, a big part of it was the social aspect of it, but what drew me to Sigma Alpha Epsilon SAE, is kind of their guiding principle, which, their creed known as the true gentleman. And I think it's, part of me had always, found I wanted to act a certain way, whether I had been acting that way in my actual life is one thing or another. But, there's the social part and then there's that part that kind of like drives your morality. And, any organization, there were other fraternities and stuff on campus that I could have gotten involved with that I had rushed. I'm not going to say that they would have extended me a bid to join. But I think what drove me to SAE is the people I met were genuine. They were fun. They were cool. They were funny. They were smart and they were kind. And, just being given those tools to kind of say like, hey, listen, you might not know how to put into words the way you want to be. Let us give you a little bit of a hand. And I really enjoyed that. And I, as I have grown up, I'm definitely not as active in, my fraternity really at all. I do, I helped out with something a couple months ago, but I definitely think that what I learned from there has helped me become the person I am and the father that I am, and will continue to do that.
Mm-hmm. And one thing with this specific interview that I wanted to make sure to properly is I wanted to make sure this was a podcast about you, and I want to make sure it's not a podcast talking about Joe through you, if that makes sense.
Oh, I mean, I get it.
But obviously, like it's a part of your narrative. It's part of your story.
Yeah,
so like these next questions are going to be around Joe, but I just want you to know that
how fucking dare you, piece of shit.
I just said I just wanted to say I took that seriously. Like, I didn't want it to be like, so tell me this about Joe. Like what? See, like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I get it, man. Don't worry about it.
But because you made videos growing up as kids, right? Like you guys shot movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When did because was he the first person in your friend group to go on like online and start posting videos on YouTube?
He was the only one.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, he was, yes, he was the first and only one.
Was that weird for you guys at the time? You're like, yo, what are you doing?
I think to an extent, because of how close Joey and I are and were, I think I knew him. I think confidently we could say that I knew him better than our other friends. Um, and there were always parts of Joey that were a little more reserved, and I was the loud one, and he was there with me, and we were having a great time. But I think he definitely kept certain things, whether it be opinions or whatever, to himself. So I think when the videos started coming out, our friends started to see parts of him that they had gotten glimpses of and maybe not known as well. So it was just, kind of funny. There's no other way to describe it. It was funny. I think some of my friends reacted that way, and then I think it started to get different when those videos started catching some steam. And that snowball kept rolling and rolling.
And at what point was that? Like, how long had he been doing it before that really kind of started to take off?
Um, Joe has the we can call it a curse of just good looks. So he's always whether it be from MySpace or whatever, he was always Joe from something. So it was Joe from MySpace, Joe from Facebook, and then eventually became Joe from YouTube. And I would say around like early 2011, I would say, is when it really started to catch on. He started getting recognized, I think, locally, um, for the videos. And then, they started spreading, because that was really in the early days of YouTube and social media, even social media to an extent. So he got in when it really was early. So he had a lot easier of a time, marketing himself, because it was just kind of being spread like wildfire.
And when did you start to be in the videos? Because like I tried to go back, but obviously there's so much stuff that's been like archived and pulled off. Like that thing I found about the fruit roll up was literally like an unlisted YouTube video that was linked in a blog post from like some date that I clicked on. Like that's how I found that. But like for the most part, there's like nothing there pre like 6 years ago. So when did you start to kind of get involved in the videos?
Um, I can't remember the first, but it was tough because I was at college and I was staying there, and I wasn't coming home every weekend, or maybe every other weekend or every 3 weeks or something. Um, so I would say in the early goings on of him, making these videos, I was in a couple, but it definitely picked up more as I was able to drive and I was able to pay for a train ticket to come to New York. So I was in some of the early ones, but for the most part, I mean, I would say if in its entirety, he built, himself by himself.
Of course. I was just more so looking at it from the point of like you guys film videos growing up. So when you started being in these videos and he had started to have like a huge following, was it weird? Like, did you know that there was going to be hundreds of thousands of people watching these videos? And like, was that a trip, or was it like because your guys' rapport is so good and you've known each other for so long that it was just like any other video?
I think him and I have spoken about this to an extent as well. And I think there was a part of me that I've always been very happy, for him, because at the end of the day, whether I'm involved or not, all I care about is his success. And I think, in when we had started doing these videos, I think he wanted me, because I went away. I left. I went to college. And I think if I had not, I would have been there. And, looking back on it, I joke around and say, like, I'm the idiot that went and, got a degree, and you turned yourself into this, social media star. So it wasn't weird, but I definitely had a little bit of FOMO, and but the fear of missing out there was completely overmasked by seeing how he was blowing up doing what he truly loved. And he worked fucking hard, dude. Like, not only did he work hard, like he had to ignore a lot of people saying a lot of the same shit, a lot of like, hey man, you're not like this, you need more of an option, more options for yourself. So uh yeah.
And like, I think that's to your point, like anyone of that scale on social media, like it wasn't by accident. You know what I mean? But like even when you did come back, because you were still in the videos, like even though like you left, you were still back every once in a while. Was there pressure from the perspective of just like when you're on camera, you know that you're not just filming this and your family's going to watch it on the TV in the living room later, and it's just a home movie, but it's like something you're filming for like hundreds of thousands of people that are watching.
Not necessarily, because I think at the end of the day, all I've ever cared about, and I think Joey's the same way, is if I make him laugh, then I'm okay. Like I am my own worst critic and I will drive myself nuts, absolutely fucking nuts, if I sit there and try to put pen to paper and come up with things that are going to be funny for the general mass, because I think that what I find funny is not necessarily what everyone else finds funny. So anytime I would go on, my main priority is just to make the person, to make him laugh, whether he be sitting next to me or behind the camera, filming it. So that's all I've thought about, because if I would sit there and try to worry about everybody else, it would drive me nuts. I legitimately would go absolutely ape shit.
And I think that's important for people to hear, though. Like anyone that wants to start a podcast or wants to start making stuff, like you're never going to make anything that's for everyone. You know what I mean? So pick that audience of one and run with that. And then, so when you graduated school, like, was there a formal thing when you became more of a part of Santagato Studios and like the Stank podcast came out? Like, was that more of a formal thing, or did that just kind of happen organically?
He had approached me and said like, hey, again, I went to school, I got these degrees, and I said to myself, like, I am not going to make what I went for a waste. I'm going to use my degrees as best as I can. He'd come to me and he had asked me, to do some stuff, and we did do some stuff, obviously with the Stank, and now where I am with the Basement Yard. Um, I think it's always been, he kind of gave me the tools and said like, listen, if you want to come on board, I am here. And you just let me know. And in doing that, we found, I think, a good middle ground where I can, you know, move away realistically and, live a life outside of New York and still be involved, as much as possible.
Okay. And the Stank, in the first ever episode of the Stank, you guys joked that like it was great when Joe came to us with the idea that we gave him a year ago. And so like and it was like that was one of the things. It was like one of the top comments on that video. So shout out to whoever commented that, because I didn't have the time to listen to the whole thing in prepping for this. But like, so that was, what was the Stank podcast and how was it different from the Basement Yard? Was it more like pop culture focused?
Yeah. So I'm a big movie nerd, comic books, video games, TV. And when Danny Lopriori and I first met each other, that's one of the things that we really first bonded, talking about, because he was the same way. He watched a lot of movies, played a lot of video games, watched a lot of TV. So we did, and that's a true story. We went to Joey a year, in 2018, and said, "Hey, what do you think if we start, this comedy podcast?" And he was, but we mix in pop culture news, and he was like, "It needs to be more different." At first, he said that, and then, a couple of months went by. We joke about him being this, narcissistic tyrant. Obviously not, but he said like, "Hey, well, what do you think about that?" And I was like, "Oh, I had already thought of names from the year prior." So I was like, we were ready to go, and we got it up off the ground pretty quick because Danny and I had thought about it quite a bit prior.
And I'm curious, why didn't you guys just make the podcast anyways? Why'd you wait that year for it to be under like the Santagato Studios umbrella?
Uh, I think it was just easier to have Joe help us. To be really honest, he had the cameras already. He had, he had the knowledge. Like, one of the things that I don't think people, I don't know if people talk about this because I don't really read much about Joe on the internet, but he is really smart, very business oriented. He's a really good entrepreneur, whatever you say. And, it's like, if you go to, a Mark Cuban with an idea and he shoots it down, you're going to be a little like, oh, well, maybe we didn't think this through well. And to an extent, the same thing, Joey has the brains, he has the knowledge, he also has the equipment and the space. So if he's on board, it's going to make our job a lot easier. Because also at the time, Danny was working for him, and I didn't want to take Danny away from his actual job, and be like, "Hey, don't get other work done. Come do this podcast." Joey, isn't, not that he wouldn't support it. He would support it obviously because he supports whatever we do, but you know what I mean? Just like step away from your work to do this other thing that's not your work.
Okay. I think it's interesting that you say that about jokes. Like I've looked for content like that about him just talking about his process and everything, and so it's like it doesn't exist. So it's cool that you called that
Oh
out.
yeah, I have said it once and I'll say it again. He is legitimately, um, one of the smartest, like forward thinking, like business minds I think I've ever, not only that I've ever met, because I haven't met like fucking moguls, but like that I've ever heard speak about any of, that space, whether it be the digital space or just being an entrepreneur, period.
Mhm. And then so the stank, correct me if I'm wrong, but that lasts for about a year, right?
Yep.
Give or take. And so at what point, like when did Joe come to you and was like, "Hey, I want you on the basement yard"?
Shortly thereafter, I think with Danny stepping away and kind of wanting to work on himself, we we always had this dream, literally, like we've always talked about it. We've always had this, and he came to me and he kind of asked me what he thinks he should have done. Before he had asked me to be on the basement yard with him full time, and I said, "Hey, man, I said, listen, I think whatever you come up with will be the right decision." And I said, I know that you're, again, a good businessman. You're very smart. He never puts himself in a position where he's going to fail, not only because he's a hard worker, but because he knows what he's getting himself into. And then he was like, all right, I want you there. And I said, great. And we had, I think there was a small blip where we were both like, like it was like very like heartfelt and emotional, not emotional. Like we didn't cry to each other, but like, I like, I took it in and he, took it in. And then we were like, all right, let's get to it. And yeah. And then we just kind of kept going from there.
And was it like an easy integration for you? Like obviously, like we've talked about, like you guys have known each other for quarter century at this point now. Like so, there's obviously going to be a rapport there automatically. But is like finding the cadence and the flow of like doing something long form in a podcast. Like was there an adjustment period or was it pretty seamless?
Yeah, I think there was an adjustment period because even though we've known each other that, for as long as we have and how well we know each other, you still need to be able to translate that on, whether it be an audio or video so other people can see the connection. And I think definitely in our position, I worried, again, I'm my own worst critic. So of course I'm sitting there and I'm talking to I remember vividly sitting down, talking to my wife and being like, holy shit, like I need to, for lack of better terms, replace Danny, which anyone that knows the basement yard or knows Danny or me or Joe knows that that is an impossible task. Danny is he's hysterical, he's talented. So I had to kind of say to myself, like, all right, well, why try to be something I'm not? Why try to replace someone that is just objectively funnier than me and just work on being myself and work on the relationship that Joey and I have. So it did. I think it took a couple weeks, not as long, but there was a bit of an adjustment period.
And so, with kind of being your own harshest critic, what's the process look like for prepping for a show? Like, or is there any like debrief where you kind of rewatch the show and analyze your performance, for lack of a better word, or like, do you like what does that look like?
No, I mean, what you see is what we record, with very, very few, mishaps. Our incredible editor, our friend Josh, we send it to him and he edits it. There's been maybe one or two instances where a recording issue happened and we had to re-record something, but what you see is as it happens, no hiccups, no double takes, no like trying to set up bits or anything. Um, we get together beforehand, we talk through the week and, kind of come up with ideas and, kind of things that happened and why we think we should talk about it, whether it be personal stories, things in the news or, anything like that. We bring it to each other. We talk about it. We say like, all right, cool. How do you want to break this up? We'll start with this. We'll do this. We'll do the ads. We'll then do that. And then we'll wrap up. And it's pretty, it's kind of, laissez faire, not a lot of hands on. We take pride in what in doing the episodes, but it's not like we sit there and script out jokes and like little bits that we want to do. It's really what you see is what you get.
And in terms of like analyzing yourself, do you watch it back and be like, oh, I like need to do this better, that better? Is it all just kind of like in the moment stuff you kind of internalize?
Dude, I don't know if you're like this. I cannot watch or listen to myself back. You before to, kind of peel the curtain back a little bit. Before we started recording, Jake was like, "Yeah, man, like I'll if I'll send you the episode if you want to like take a listen through it, let me know if there's anything that like you want me to take out or anything." And like I like winced because I hate dude, I hate watching myself back because I don't know. I don't like it. So I really don't watch anything back, if that sounds weird.
No, I mean, I think that's the case for a lot of people, right?
How are
Like
you?
whether
Are you like that?
not really. I mean, like part of it is I'm my own editor, so I have to watch myself back.
Yeah,
So it's
there you
like
go.
I've done this is like the 145th interview, so I've probably just done it enough times where it's like it's just it's part of the process at this point. Um, but yeah, no, I haven't had that issue. And you also, by the way, no pressure. You don't have to re-listen to the podcast.
No, no, I know. I was using it to say like I just hate.
100%.
I just hate it.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the ads and stuff. And one thing that you guys have done really well with the show is monetizing it. Like you're specifically Patreon, like it's out of this world, right? Like you guys are almost at 10,000 patrons, which I think is just probably top 100 in the world, I would imagine, if not higher than that. Like I was trying to Google and see if that was a stat somewhere because I was like 10,000 people. But talk to me about that, the fact that there's 10,000 people that send money to the basement yard every single month just for what you guys do. Like, how does that blow your mind? Like,
yeah, it blows my mind. And I always like, I always find myself kind of, looking at that number and being like, holy shit, like it's just a weird because we grew up just making ourselves laugh and making our friends laugh, which is, what, 35 people max, and then asking any of them to give any sort of money would, one, we wouldn't do that, but two, it wouldn't fucking happen, so the I know myself and Joe really take a lot of pride in the patrons, because those are the people that are saying like, hey, we're going to support you because you support us in a way. And we receive a lot of messages saying like, hey, I'm a patron, you guys don't realize like how important it is that you provide me with an escape. And those messages just really like hit close to home for me, because that's all I've wanted to do is just make people smile and laugh, and being able to do that to people that I will realistically never meet or speak directly to is really, really nice. So yeah, the Patreon is incredible. We take a lot of pride in it. We always make sure we're trying to give them the best possible content, even though a lot of people hate that term now, but yeah.
and so it's an extra show a week, right? That's the biggest
Yeah.
perk?
Yeah. Well, the biggest perk is, yeah. So they get each weekly episode a week in advance. So we're always a week, an episode ahead. And then with another tier, they get exclusive episodes that nobody else gets to see. And realistically, those episodes are kind of shaped around the Patreon. So like we said, all right, we hit this goal, I will eat the hottest chip in the world. And we did. And that's, they make it happen. So they get to reap the benefits of that happening.
What was it like to eat the hottest chip in the world?
Dude, it sucks. Do you like spicy food?
Yes, but like spicy food that's not too spicy. That's probably the best way to describe it. So I'm not putting as much hot sauce on my chicken wings or anything. Like I've told myself the only reason I'm not famous is I'm just making sure I never end up on hot ones.
That's good. I like that. By the way, I know a lot of people, I watch Hot Ones. People talk about Sean Evans being a good interviewer. You are a very good interviewer, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you like a hot sauce that like a little kick and you enjoy the flavor. Well, this chip had, all the kick, none of the flavor. First of all, it was fucking stale, which off the bat ruined it. Second, I opened the packaging. It comes, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called like the Pocky chip. I'm giving them a free plug right now. Whatever. I dare people to go eat it. It comes in a single packaging, and it's like in like a coffin box. and I opened the packaging, and like a little piece of the chip like fell on my eyelid.
Oh, fuck.
So this fucking chip was telling me from the start, don't eat me. But then yeah, it was stale and there's no flavor. It's just hot. And it like the worst part of it was about after I would say 15-20 minutes or so, my stomach was killing me. And it was just like, this is not fun. And it just hurt. Like my mouth got okay. I was able to handle the heat after a little while. You know, I had some milk, you know, that helped, but I think the stomach was the worst part.
And so did you eat the chip at the end of the episode, or did you do it at the beginning and then have to battle through the next hour?
I ate it at the beginning and battled through the next hour.
Fuck.
And dude, it sucked.
I can't imagine. I'm like, yeah, especially during a podcast where it's like, because it's unedited, like you just go the whole hour like that could be a grind. And so kind of with that in mind and with that experience of eating that chip, would you do hot ones?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. I mean, by the time this comes out, it'll probably be out, but Joe and I for a Patreon episode are doing a Hot Ones parody. So it will be there, but oh yeah, man. If fucking Sean Evans gave us the call, I would be there in a heartbeat.
That's fair.
But
And
I'd do my social life with Jacob Kelly before I did that show any day.
hey, I appreciate that. No one's suffering, hopefully, on this interview and this podcast. But no, that's awesome. So what are some of the other stuff you guys have done, like the Patreon exclusive tie-ins? Like, what is it like? Usually when you hit like X amount of patrons, you'll do something like eat a chip or something like that. Is that usually how it's tied in?
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, other episodes we've done, you know, we've done, like when I first started, um, was that a Patreon exclusive? No, actually, it wasn't a Patreon exclusive. I'm sorry. It's so hard to sometimes like make the distinction between Patreon and weekly. But like we've done like Joey, when we hit a certain amount, had to do an enema. So I believe there's a video of him doing, not of his asshole, but there's a video of him taking an enema. You know, we said if we hit 10,000, Joey is going. At first, we said he was going to allow me to piss on his foot. Uh,
So random.
so, and it's funny because like we'll be doing an episode, we'll be like, yeah, 10,000, I'll pee on your foot. And he's like, okay, you know. We did a power hour episode, you know, where we drank excessively. So there's just a lot of shit on there. And if you know, I don't mean to plug in the middle of the show, but you know, people that go and join, they get everything, you know, from the past to now, they get it all.
And kind of with that in mind, one thing I think this was recently, I heard you mention like your job on the podcast. And I was like, I didn't realize that you were still working while being on the show. So like, how do you balance that? Because obviously there's some like, for lack of better, there's some questionable shit on the podcast. It's like, how does work view your work with the Basement Yard?
Yeah. You know, I'm not the person that starts a job and is like, oh, by the way, I, you know, am on a podcast or I do podcasts. But when I first started my current job, which I've been at for about 3 years now, I was in the office and one of like the women in the office came up to me, and it's a small, you know, office. And she goes, so, Italian woman from Long Island. And she's like, so, my daughter's a big fan of your friend. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah. And I was like, do me a favor, just like, you know, keep it. And she's like, oh, of course. And then number of months later, I had a review with, you know, the owner of the company. And he said like, oh, I hear you're quite, you know, the personality on the internet. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you know? And he said like, no, man, you know, from what I've seen and heard, like, I love it. You know, keep doing you. I love to see our, you know, our guys doing different stuff, guys and girls doing different stuff. I was like, oh, okay. So I've made sure that, you know, my podcasting doesn't get in the way of my actual job. And in doing that, I think I've, you know, done well, because my actual job can't be like, hey, you're not performing well because you're doing that podcast, you know? So if I don't give them the opportunity to say that, I am fucking coasting.
And is it like part of that is just not talking about work, to like not talking about where you work or anything like that? Is that part of that balance?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's just not, it's no one's business. You know, what I do for work, I you know, I kind of vaguely talk about, but where I work and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I have to pay the bills, And, the podcast is a great opportunity. It does well, but, I have 2 children right now. I have a wife who's a stay-at-home mom, which is a very, very difficult job. So I want to do everything I can to, you know, provide, and in doing that, it means working harder, and the reality is I could work 40 jobs and I wouldn't be able to make up for the jobs that she does being a stay-at-home mom, because it is fucking tough.
I can't even imagine. And, like, this is a question I've heard movie directors get asked, so I'm excited to ask you this. At what age do you let your kids watch The Basement Yard?
Bah! Long, long time. I have a 6-year-old stepson and my 5-month-old daughter. And this has come up in conversation between my wife and I. She's like, at a point, his friends might, their parents might recognize you, and it'll trickle down. And I said, we'll handle that when it happens, because there are obviously things on there I say that, some people might look and frown upon, but it's going to be a very long time before I let my children watch. And then even then, like, I will have a conversation with them, but I'm not looking forward to when that day comes, because it won't be easy.
Fair. And you mentioned earlier the community that you guys have built and how you get all these messages and stuff. How have you gone about building that community? Do you think it's just being so authentic? Like, when I sat down at the start of this, I felt like, because I've watched like so many hours and listened to so many hours, it's like I understand kind of like your cadence is familiar to me just because I've heard it so many times. You know what I mean? Like, just the way you answer questions. So, like, is it just being so open and authentic, and that's how you've built a connection with the audience, or how have you guys built that community?
I think so. I think a lot of the people that we find watch the Basement Yard have been supporting Joe for a while. Um, so there is definitely a built-in audience. And I mean, realistically, as humans, all of us are longing to be a part of something. If you want me to get a little existential. But I do think a part of it is, our friendship, our relationship is very real. It's very honest. It's very down to earth. At the end of the day, we're 2 regular guys that just talk shit on camera, and people listen to it. So I think that people relate to that, and they, kind of identify as being a part of that, because our just who we are is just open and honest, with the people that are listening.
Mhm. And how does your community on Twitch differ from the Basement Yards? You know what I mean? Like, is it a heavy crossover? I think you have just over 8K, correct me if I'm wrong, on Twitch right now. So, like, is that a lot of crossover from the Basement Yard, or is it your own community that you've built?
Yeah, I mean, I think that from when I started, streaming on Twitch, it was people that had seen me or heard me on the Basement Yard or in videos, because at the time I was not on Twitch. I wasn't on the Basement Yard frequently. I think I had popped on a couple episodes, and I was also doing another podcast at the time that people might have heard me from, and came over. But I would be foolish not to say that the community probably didn't. They found me as a result of that. But the Twitch community is a lot more intimate. For lack of better terms, we kind of talk openly, not only, amongst themselves, which is my favorite fucking thing, but, to each other. Anytime I go on, no matter how many people are watching, I welcome everyone that's in the chat, and it could be 10 people, it could be 70 people, it could be 100 people. I've not had thousands. And if I ever did, I wouldn't obviously be able to do that. But I've always said that if I have the opportunity and platform to talk to people one on one, I'm going to use it. And yeah, that's why I tell people all the time, like, if you ever want to, like, talk to me, go to fucking Twitch, because that's where, like, literally people will pop in and I'll just talk. Like, I've made friends with people on Twitch that I've never met, and they just started watching, and it's a really, really, really cool, tight knit community that I'm really proud of.
When you said that there was the other podcast you were doing where people might have come from, was that the Stank, or are we going further back with the Squared
Going
Circle
further,
Jerk?
yes, the squared circle jerks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's been kind of wiped of the internet a little bit, but yes, it is the Squared Circle Jerks podcast.
Okay. And so you've been a pro wrestling fan your whole life?
Yeah, yes, I have.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just interviewed yesterday Chris Van Vliet. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Oh yeah, he's also I'm a competitor to the Movie Trivia Schmodown, which is a competitive movie trivia league, and he's also a competitor in there. So
Oh,
yes, I know.
really?
I know Chris Van Vliet. I don't know him, but I know of
No,
him.
no, of him. Okay. And so the Schmodown, I saw like I watched an interview you did, like it was like a preseason interview or something you did for the Schmodown. It's like, how does that work? Because it's very like organized. It's like a sports league. I saw you posted like a stats graphic the other day, which I just thought was crazy. Like, what is the movie trivia Schmodown?
Well, the movie trivia Schmodown is the best parts of movie trivia and best parts of WWE, professional wrestling. It's all real. What you see are legit competitions. They are legit, matches. And everything is kind of turned up to 12 with the personalities and the characters and, the interactions. It's I've been a fan of it for years. I was provided the opportunity to be put in the draft for this year, and then I was drafted, and I've had 2 matches as of right now. I've won both of them, thank God. And I fucking love it. I can only tell people enough about it. Like, it's if you like movies, like, you need to be watching it, and if you like movies and wrestling, it's the only thing in the world that is gonna scratch both of those itches.
Okay, that's interesting. And so like when it's trivia, like how does the trivia work? Is it literally just like first person answer, or how does?
So a basic match has a basic singles match because I'm in the singles division. The league has um, 4 divisions. There's a singles division, which is one on one. Maybe sometimes it'll be a triple threat or 4 people in a match. Sometimes I think there have been a couple 5. But then there's a teams division, which is pretty similar, but you're working with somebody else. There's an inner geekdom division, which is like a smaller set of movies, but the questions are a lot more difficult. And the movies are more like geeky movies, like Marvel movies, DC movies, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek. And then they have another whole division just for Star Wars, which, if you are a big fan of Star Wars like me and you want to get humbled very quick, watch one of those matches because it is ridiculous. The people that compete in the Star Wars division are some of the most impressive people I've ever watched because they can say, like, it'll be like, what was the color of the Zorgonites, parking ticket on planet Bleeplorp? Obviously, those aren't real things, but they would know, but basically, in a regular singles match, there are 3 rounds, unless it's a championship match, which then is 5 rounds. But in the first round, it's general trivia. You are asked a question, you write it down on a whiteboard. When the time is up, you reveal your answer. Second round, there's a big, nice, shiny wheel. Spin from the wheel, and there are multiple categories on it. Whatever you get after your first or second spin, you can either keep or spin again and get it on the second spin. You answer questions in that. And then the third round, it's 3 trivia questions of varying difficulty: a 2-pointer, a 3-pointer, and a 5-pointer. And then, if necessary, there's overtime, which is just like round 1, but it's sudden death rules. It sounds complicated, but it is fucking awesome. I can't say enough great things about it. It is like everyone has like that. When you watch a movie, you want to talk about it. So just watching a bunch of people that love movies answer questions about movies, I can't explain, but it scratches an itch that I did not know needed to be scratched.
Where do you find the time for everything? You have your job, you have 2 episodes of the Basement Yard a week. I believe you stream on Twitch 2 nights a week. You're finding time to do this with me. You're on the Schmodown. You have a family. Like, how do you even balance everything?
Uh, it can be a lot sometimes. Unfortunately, some of those things take precedent over others, and there will be times where I can't. Well, I'm unable to stream for a day or 2, and then have to put it off. And but you find the time. I work is work. I have to make money. I have to provide. Basement Yard is, yes, it is the greatest and most fun job in the world, but it is still a job. I still need to show up. I need to show up prepared, and I need to perform. And then you just make it work. Uh, I have an incredible support system with my family, with my wife, but also my immediate family, my mom, my dad, in-laws, brothers, sisters, brother and sister-in-laws, and stuff like that. So you if you want to make it work, you find a way to make it work, for lack of better terms.
That's fair. And at the end of the day, it comes down to priorities, right? It's not that there's not enough time in a day. It comes down to what you prioritize.
Yeah.
And there's one thing I was going to ask with kind of jumping back to Twitch. I think it was a Instagram caption. I wrote it down. Yeah, October 2019. So the caption was, some of you guys and gals might know, I stream on Twitch a couple nights a week. A few nights ago, I set a goal for some help from our community to get my sweet ass out of debt since this gaming computer was expensive. And so did the Twitch community help you get out of debt, of just like debt period, or just debt from the gaming PC?
Oh, no, not debt period. Maybe one day that would be very, very nice. Because we, my wife and I just bought a house, so that's going to add another 30 years of debt. But no, it was for the Twitch setup, the microphone, the tower, the cameras, the screens. I put a number on there saying, hey, if you can donate, great. If you can't, don't worry about it. And we reached that donation goal, and they said, hey, if we do that, I will do a 24-hour stream. And we did it. And I did a 24-hour stream, and it was great, but it was a lot of drinking of tea, and a lot of trying not to doze off.
That's kind of exactly where I was heading with the 24-hour stream. Cause like I've never actually stayed. I realized recently, like I think it might have even been when I was researching for the podcast. I don't think I've ever stayed up for 24 hours straight. And so like, I can't even imagine what it'd be like to stay up for 24 hours straight and like stream the whole time. Like, were there some like definite lulls, or were you able to keep the energy up relatively for the full 24 hours?
I tried my hardest to keep the energy up for the full 24 hours. I think, I broke it down when I spoke about it with somebody else. I broke it down in sections of 8. That first 8 hours, you're like, wow, this isn't bad. Like, I feel good. I'm doing good. I don't know, if or how much video games you play, but like you could really get yourself lost in a good video game. And then I'm like, all right, that second 8 hours, you're like, I am a little tired, but I could still do this. It's those last 8 hours that I think are really, really tough, because that's where you're tired, you're hungry, you reach a point where you're kind of a little delirious. And, I don't know if you partake in the consumption of alcohol, but you start to feel a little fucking drunk. Like you're just like, okay, and then oddly enough, as soon as it was over, I remember my first time I did it from Friday at 5 p.m., which was after my work day. So I worked a full day and then started streaming at 5 until the following Friday. I mean, I'm sorry, that would be crazy. Until the following day at 5. And then, I'm a Yankee fan. It was the Yankees were playing in a playoff game. So I then stayed up, and I remember like my wife was like, "Are you okay?" My eyes were bloodshot red, and I was like, "I'm great." I went to the liquor store, bought some beer, had a couple drinks, watched the game, and then I just like someone shot me with a trank. I was fucking out. Like my wife came out because she went to sleep, and she comes out, at like 3 a.m. and she like finds me like how like you like lay back on a couch and like your like head is like this, and like I have a beer in my hand, I'm laying back like that, and she's like, "You weren't snoring, you were just breathing, and I didn't know if you were alive." I was like, I just got up, got in bed, and was just out until about like I would say like 10 a.m.
That's crazy.
It was a lot, man.
Yeah. And you asked if I played video games, and I do, not as much as I used to, but I wrote out here some of my favorite games of all time. And I want to run through them, kind of like not a speed round, but I just want to run through some of these and get your opinion on some of my favorite games of all time. Because I know you collect video. I can't just not mention the wall behind. There's some action figures. There's some video games on there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I haven't hung up everything yet. I got a couple of video games here. We got some old Pokemon.
Nice, yeah.
Going.
Not bad. First game, Tony Hawk Underground 1.
Wow. Underground. I'm trying to remember which one that was. That was later on in the series, right?
That was I think that might have been the first.
Like the first open world one, right?
Yeah.
I remember that game. I'll give that a thumbs up. Most of the Tony Hawk games are fucking fun, and I think they are great. Did you play the remake of 1 and 2?
I haven't yet, because and part of the reason I wasn't as like buy it right away was because when I got Underground, I was like 5 or 6. So I missed the pro skater era of Tony Hawk. So it's like, I wasn't like gung ho about that one, just because it was like, before my time, essentially, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. I mean, fun game. You should definitely, if you have the opportunity, play it, buy it. It's fun.
Yeah. Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original.
The original Battlefronts I played, but not a lot. I know that the newer ones I personally enjoy. I know that some people don't, just because of like the loot box transaction issues that the second one had. But that you get a thumbs up from me, baby. I think that's a great game.
So I've got tons, but I'm just going to jump to the last two because these are probably my two favorite video games of all time. And I know the second one, it can be very divisive. The first one is The Last of Us Part 1, and the second one is The Last of Us Part 2. Where do you land on with those two games?
Last of Us Part 1 is a masterpiece. Because I mean, it's just what am I going to say about it that's new? Like every reason people talk well about it is true. It's emotional, it's fun, it's heartbreaking. But the second one, personally, I enjoyed it. I have a list of like media, whether it be movies, TV, video games, that I think like you do it once, cool, don't need to do it again. Last of Us Part 2 is definitely on there. It is long, it's depressing, it is brutal, and it's like I played it once. It's going to take a long time for me if I want to revisit that game.
Interesting. Okay. What about it specifically? Like, I'm just curious, right? Because like I'm on the opposite side where I played it and I was like, holy shit, like this was everything I wanted, and it like fucked with me in the ways I was okay with it fucking with me. And like, but I understand like a lot of people were split. And obviously not without getting into crazy spoilers, but there's that big twist right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
I know it leaked beforehand. I went completely like zero dark 30. I didn't go on nothing Last of Us 2. So I didn't know that was coming when I came into playing it. And so I think
same.
Yeah. So I think that made the experience better, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, I'm just curious kind of more on that from you.
Yeah, no, I think that again, there are certain like pieces of content, media, movies, whatever, that if you enjoy the medium, you need to be a part of. Like the movie 1917. I watched that movie. I enjoyed that movie, but I saw it once and I don't need to see it. I appreciate it for what it was worth. I thought it was really innovative. Not necessarily innovative because people have done stuff like that beforehand, but like the way that they did it, it seemed more flawless than other movies that had done it. Same thing with Last of Us Part 2. It was an incredible world that felt lived in. The characters, you loved them from the first game. If you played the first game and you still love them here, the story, I think the story was just very heavy, and it was also really long. You kind of go about, without spoiling things, you go about playing the game, and then you get about halfway through, and then you have to like kind of go back and start it again, but in another perspective. And it's a lot. It's a lot to keep up with and do. So I think, will I play it again? Probably, but it's not one of those games that I revisit frequently.
That's fair. I think that's honestly like my favorite thing about anything creative, right? Is like, I'm like, holy, this is the most amazing game. And you're like, yeah, it was good, but like probably not something I'm going to run to replay. And that's just my favorite part about creativity. Like I'm getting more into movies right now. And it's just interesting to see kind of like, because I have a running list of every movie I've watched this year and I have them in a ranking. And so it's interesting to see like where I'll put a movie kind of low and I'll like watch someone breaking down. They're like, this is the greatest movie I've ever watched. This is like my favorite movie. And I'm like, man, I didn't land with me. And so it's just kind of, that's my favorite part about creativity is everyone interprets it in different ways.
What's on your, give me your top 3 on your movies this year thus far?
Top 3. So honestly, like I keep like every time I look at it, I feel like I'm moving things around because it's like how I feel about it after.
Yeah.
And so the way I'm tackling it, for a little bit of context, is so I've started writing screenplays because that's something I wanted to do as a kid, but then I never tried. And so I was like, no, I'm trying now. So I'm going director by director.
Okay.
And so I started with Fincher, and then I watched Tarantino. I just finished Nolan, and now I'm just started the Coen brothers.
Okay.
And so top 3 right now, I think is Zodiac.
Oh yeah, good one.
Which was actually the first movie I watched this year, was Zodiac. But that one, Inglourious Bastards, and Pulp Fiction. And I feel like Pulp Fiction is such a cop-out top 3, but I had no idea. Similar to Last of Us Part 2, I sat down to watch Pulp Fiction with literally no idea what it was about. I'd somehow, over the last 23 years, avoided anything about that movie at all. And so I literally like read like a synopsis and I had like no idea what was happening. So it's cool to kind of come into it like someone who would have watched it back in 94 when it came out would like, just like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like it was a different experience. So that's probably why it's up there for me. But I feel like it's the one that people always dunk on. If it's like your favorite movie of all time is Pulp Fiction, like that's what people say. It's just like a cop out answer, but it's not my number one, but it's in the top 3 for sure.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I mean, those are 4 great directors to start with. I guess 5 if you count the Coen brothers, but and they have pretty limited, I think like Fincher's only made, like what, like 8 or 9, maybe 10 movies at this point, and then obviously Tarantino and those are good places to start. What other video games do you have on that list? Anything on that might be a bit hot takey of you?
Wii Sports Resort, specifically the basketball mini game.
I gotta say, I never played the resort one. I played the original though.
The original was fun. I was just the basketball one. Like I could lose myself for hours in that basketball. With the first one, I remember I think I got it when I was like 10 or 11, and I really wanted a PS3. And I was visiting family in Ottawa. One of my family members gave me a gift card to like GameStop. And they're like, don't spend this till you go home. And I was like, I'm getting a fucking PS3. And I got home and they're like, here's a Wii. And I was like, oh my God. But we got Wii Sports. So I played boxing so aggressively on Wii when I first got it. I couldn't lift my arms for 3 days after.
I was such a hardo playing Wii boxing. Like, because realistically, like, it's just the controllers, like you can keep your body still and just do this. But I was the one that was like, I was fucking like 14, 15 when I got a Wii, and I was like, all right, I went so hard for the boxing.
Did you ever play against anyone like I was very similar. Did you ever play against anyone who literally stood there and was just like flick of the wrist and nothing else? It's the most aggravating thing.
Yeah. Oh my God. It would drive me absolutely nuts.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? I just, so the other games that I have on here, Assassin's Creed 2. And I put 2 when really like Brotherhood I have above Assassin's Creed 2, but I played Brotherhood before I played Assassin's Creed 2. And I feel like had I played them in the correct order, I would have had the Brotherhood experience with Assassin's Creed 2.
Okay, that's fair. I'm not a big fan. I'm not like a super big fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise. I've always felt they were a little, like for the ones I've played, I've always felt they were a little overrated. But the one that I did enjoy the most was Black Flag, which my understanding, people don't like a whole lot.
Probably because there's a lot of ships, a lot of boats in that one.
A lot of ships and boats.
Yeah.
And singing shanty tunes.
Oh, the shanty tunes was the best part of Black Flag.
That's what I think. I'm learning just some, pirate songs, which are, nice for the car ride.
Yeah, exactly. No, they're great. Uncharted 2.
Okay. I played through them all. I felt they were overrated, but
that's fair. What else do I have in here? I had Grand Theft Auto San Andreas because that's a classic that can't not be on the list.
Of course, yes.
I'm trying to think of other random games. Do you ever play the 50 Cent game?
But what was it? Bulletproof?
I played the second one, Blood on the Sand.
Blood in the Sand. Okay. Bulletproof might not even be one of them, but no, I never played. I never did.
I mean, I don't think you're missing anything. It was just a random game that popped into my head here. But like my problem with video games as a kid, I was committed to playing one at a time. Like I could not move on until I beat it other than sports games. And so I have over 100 video games and have maybe opened 50 of them. So sitting in the storage unit in my building is all the Mass Effect games unopened, Witcher 2 unopened, Skyrim unopened, just so many games that I just never played. But
yeah, that makes sense.
But so I have like it's like a very, I feel like it's a very pretty standard list, like nothing too out there in terms of video games. What's on your list? Putting on the spot a little bit.
Oh, I grew up playing a lot of, like the Nintendo stuff, so Super Mario 64, a lot of people don't like Super Mario Sunshine. I have fond memories of it. Played a lot of Smash Brothers growing up with, my brothers and my friends. So that's on there. But I think if I were to say like, what is like the game, like I would say of my, like in there is Banjo-Kazooie. I fucking love that game so much. I can't even explain why. I mean, like it's fun. It's funny. It's a likable character. It's just, I just love that game. The Batman Arkham series.
Yeah, I should have been on the list. Yeah.
Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight, Arkham Origins. But I love those. And then the only video game to ever make me read a book was 2018's God of War. I fucking was and still am obsessed with that game. I loved it so much. So much so that for a period of time I had convinced my wife to name our daughter Valkyrie. But that did not come to fruition, unfortunately.
No. Similar to how you didn't get to Stone Cold Stunner one of your friends at your wedding.
God damn. I mean, I didn't get to have the wedding because of, coronavirus. But fuck yeah, man. I wanted to stun someone and I even had the whole thing planned out. And, months later, I told my wife, and she was like, this was just for you. This was your show, wasn't it? And I was like, yeah, it was.
Is the Attitude Era the best era in wrestling?
I guess, that's the era I hold the most close to me. Everyone will sit there and argue, that the territory days were better, because, they kept kayfabe and stuff like that. But personally, it's what I grew up with, so I will defend it as being the best era ever.
Fair. Do you remember where you were when Mankind got thrown off and through the Hell in the Cell?
I don't remember where I was, but I do, because I didn't watch it live because my parents did have a problem with me watching some of the stuff. And then at the time, $50 for a pay-per-view in fucking 98 was absurd. But I remember the next day in school hearing about it and just being like, no way, this is real. No way. And then we had a friend growing up who had like all the VHS tapes of every fucking wrestling pay-per-view. So when he got it, we were able to watch it and we were blown away.
I just have to ask more about the wall behind you. What are some of the prized possessions on that wall? It's probably tough to pick between them all, but what are some of the prized possessions on there?
Oh man, prized possessions. I have, if you can't tell, a love for Power Rangers. Like, I'm not like super into it to like a weird degree, I should say. I like it because I really enjoy my childhood, and I also think that toys from our, my childhood were just better in quality and cooler, and it makes me feel like a kid again. Toy Story 3 really fucked me up. If you haven't seen that one, watch it. But this row here is all Megazords, which are. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with Power Rangers, but it's different pieces come together to make one character, one robot type thing. And I really love those. And also there's a movie from the 90s. I believe it came out in 98, maybe 97, called Small Soldiers. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
Dude, I got some of the Small Soldiers here, and it just like when I bought them off of a friend who was moving to Florida, and it like fucking reawakened a part of me I forgot existed. So, the part that just like holding it and remembering when I was a kid and played with the same toy, like brings me so much joy. And I would say those are some of my prized possessions.
Mm-hmm. I recently with Small Soldiers, like I had like a memory just randomly like float through my brain. And I was like, was that a real movie or was that just like an acid dream I had or something like that? Like, did that exist? And I was like trying to remember the name and I was Googling it like, it's probably like a month or two ago.
Dude, it's fucking real. And it is, I'll tell you, it still holds up. It's pretty good, man.
All right.
It's still definitely watch it. I can only, it's great. I really, really, really love it. But what also, I'm not like one of those like freaks that when I get a toy, it like stays on the shelf and no one touches it. Like my son comes down here and him and I will take a bunch of stuff off there and we'll just like bash them around and play with them. Cause that's what I've wanted. If I'm going to have the toys, I want to see my children play with what I played with. And so that brings me so much joy.
Are rich people ruining Pokemon cards?
Fuck yeah, dude. God damn it, you rich bastards. I don't, Jake, for the sake of this, you're rich too, so I'm going to just curse you out. They're ruining Pokemon, man. I have 3 Pokemon games in box. They're sitting right here. I have red, blue, and gold. And I got them, like all 3 of them, for a really reasonable price. Each of them now have like quadrupled in fucking price. And like the people that want to have them just to remember what they had when they were a kid, it's impossible for us now. I mean, I look back on some of these cards and the values and it's like, oh, I had that. Reality is I never would have sold them because I'll never sell any of this stuff, and I'll haunt my children or their children if they ever decide to fucking sell it. But like, I just wanted just to collect it. I don't care about the prices. I don't care about the grading. I just want it. So, hey, rich people, fuck off. Go fucking buy houses or islands again. Leave the Pokemon cards for us little weirdos.
No, yeah, I interviewed Gary Hayes, who has like the richest or most highest valued Pokemon card collection in the worurld, and I asked him, I was like, where do people start now? And he's like, honestly, just pick one Pokemon you like that's not Charizard, and just try and collect all of them instead of like, because that's like all there is. Like my girlfriend's gotten into Pokemon cards lately, and she's trying to collect. I can't remember the name of it. It's a dragon type Pokemon. It's a little bit newer. My knowledge post Pokemon Sapphire is pretty shitty.
Is it Dreepy?
No. Oh, what the fuck? It's like, I think Dragon might be in the name. It looks
Dragonite?
No, but it looks kind of like, this is my way of explaining this. If anyone's a Pokemon fan, I'm probably going to get shredded for this, but it reminds me of Sylvester from Monsters Inc.
Sylvester?
In a weird way.
Who's Sylvester?
The purple,
I watch Monsters Inc.
The purple
Randall?
Yeah, Randall. Sorry.
I was going to say, who the fuck? I watched Monsters Inc. last night.
Randall, yes. That's what the fuck. I don't know where that came from. Randall. Yeah, it reminds me of Randall a little bit, but it's like a triangular dragon.
I think it might be from one of the newer games that I mentioned.
Can't remember its name.
I'm pretty sure it is Dragapult.
Yes.
There we go.
That's right.
Got it. Boom.
Yeah. So she's like, that's her thing now, is just trying to collect all the Dragapults, and she's got some Japanese cards, and so that's like her jam, instead of trying to like collect all the Charizards, which is obviously like
impossible.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, with Logan Paul walking out with it diamond studded around his neck, it's like, fuck you. I mean, like, I'm sure he's a nice person, and I have nothing against him, but like, give me the card. I won't, literally, I can promise I will never sell it personally, and I will kill my ancestors if they ever decide to sell it. Like, this is staying forever, and if any of my kids or their kids want to sell it, they're gonna have to answer to me, because it will like Conjuring come back and haunt them.
Yeah. I know we're out of time here, so I'm just gonna jump to my last couple questions. I appreciate you. I'm just curious, what were the exact instances where you were compared to Jason Momoa, Zac Efron, and Leonardo DiCaprio?
I actually, one of them happened this weekend. My brother-in-law, who lives in Oregon, is here for a couple weeks, and I think just like during history, during time, I have worn different outfits, and I've matched my outfits based off of different like movies and TV shows and stuff like that I watch. So there have been times where people have been like, "Oh my God, you're dressed like Leonardo DiCaprio," and I'm like, "So I look like Leonardo DiCaprio?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Okay," and I run with it. Jason Momoa, people have seen me shirtless and said I look like Aquaman. I don't make the news; I report the news. I think the one celebrity that I had gotten at one point in time that I think I actually did look like was Kit Harington, Jon Snow.
Oh yeah.
I had long curly hair, and I had taken a picture out at a bar, and I said the caption was Juan Snow. But everyone else, people have told me I've gotten John Stamos. I've gotten Michael B. Jordan, but only in Black Panther. Anything else he's in, they say I don't resemble him much. But I do actually get these things. People actually say them. I just choose to interpret it in a serious way.
Fair enough. How often do you reflect on everything? Like just life itself, like going all the way back, specifically with the basement yard, to like when you were a guest, now you're a host, but even going back further than that, like that kid in college, all the way to like where you are now.
A lot. I find myself frequently kind of pitching myself and, looking back on some of the trials and tribulations I've had through my life, and, where I am now and how happy I am now. I think every person has a part of their life that they would change, alter, or edit in some way. But I find myself frequently, just stopping to look back on the things I had, been through in my life, good or bad, and just seeing where I am now. And like, it fucking hits me. I've had like existential crises since I had my daughter, because my son, I call him my son, but he's really my stepson. So creating or like I guess doing the fun work and creating a child, and watching her literally like manifest into this world has just like fucked me up. So, to answer your question, a lot, and I am very grateful, humbled, and honored to be where I am in my life and excited for where I will continue to go.
Mhm. I listened to before this, I listened to Tarantino on Rogan, and they were talking about how all the stereotypes and all the things you hear about having a kid are true. Like once you have a kid, it just changes you so much.
Dude, so much. I mean, I don't know if you want or plan on having children one day. Maybe it's probably not in your plan since you're pretty young and you only have a girlfriend, but uh it like this is the thing, like it doesn't change you, it just makes you more of you, and it shifts your priorities. Like I can still do everything I had previously done. It's just I don't want to because my life's work now is to build my family and have them become the best people they can be and provide for them and my wife, you know? So it doesn't change you by any means. It just kind of shifts your priorities and strengthens the nurturer that you naturally are or aren't. It's not
Mhm.
for everyone.
Yeah. You just look at life differently, I guess.
Oh my god, dude. I've literally like I have like crises. I can't watch. I don't know if you've watched WandaVision. Um I watched a particular episode holding my, then like 2-month-old daughter or 1-month-old daughter, and it just fucked me up. And like beforehand I'd be like stone cold like, "All right, cool. All right." But then I was just like, "Holy shit." Like it makes you a blubbering emotional mess.
Mhm. For my last question,
Okay.
I like to flip the script a little bit. So instead of me asking the question, it's you asking the question, but it's not to me. Pretend you have a crystal ball and you can ask this crystal ball any question and you'll get the 100% honest answer. What is one question you want to know the answer to?
I don't know because I I guess I'd be afraid. Um I guess it's like do do you deserve to be where you are? I don't know if that's a little like weird or like a little but I guess just like do I like yeah, do I deserve to be where I am? And I think, growing up in the times that we've grown up and just the radical shifts in, not even political opinions, but just like societal opinions and like being able to understand, the hardships that people have gone through and being able to be empathetic and stuff like that. I often wonder like if some of the things I said and did as a kid were fucked up. I never did bad things or said bad things, but understandably they did not line up with what my current opinions or moral code is. So yeah, I guess I would just want to know if I've done enough to earn where I am in my life.
That's a good question. That's not a weird question by any means. I don't think there's no weird
What would you
question.
ask? What would you ask?
See, I always hope no one throws that question back at me because like I never actually take the time to think about it. Um, I think like the question I would probably ask is, am I on the right path? I think is probably where I'm at right now. That'd probably be the question. Just with when it comes to work, when it comes to the podcast, like am I, or what can I do? Like what should I be doing differently with the podcast? Like what am I doing that's not letting me get to that next level? But yeah, probably something along those lines is what I'd ask.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But no, man, thank you so much for taking time to be on the podcast. I really appreciate your time. I want to give you the floor. Where can the people find you? Where can the people find the podcast? Plug anything and everything you got right now.
Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It was an honor and a pleasure. And if one day you wanted to have me back, I would come back and accept that offer with open arms. But you could find me on Twitch at falvarez8085. Excuse me, Twitter falvarez8085, on Twitch and Instagram at the Frank Alvarez. And then I'm a member of the Movie Trivia Schmodown, so please go support them. Watch it; you will not be disappointed. The Basement Yard is the best comedy podcast in the world. I know Jacob will tell you that, and if he doesn't, I will never talk to him ever again. But go check it out at the Basement Yard. Anywhere on social media, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. And Santagato Studios, everything we got going on there is great. Not only is it fun and funny, but there's also some intriguing stuff on there. Other People's Lives is a really cool show. So just support Daddy Joe, because it trickles down and helps me, and he allows me to see my family one day a week.
Awesome, man. Well, I want to thank you once again for taking time to be on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Whether you've listened the entire way through or you only listen to bits and pieces, I really appreciate you taking time to check this out. Everyone, do me a big favor. Go and follow Frank. Go and subscribe to The Basement Yard. I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below so you can find it all there. If you'd like to follow me, you can find me everywhere on social media at the Jacob Kelly. Feel free to come and say hello. My DMs are always open. As always, today's podcast is powered by TRUFAN. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. We'll talk soon.